April 15th, 1912, the Titanic hit an iceberg. The unsinkable ship goes down. More than 2,200 people were on board. Over 1,500 of them never made it home. Now, here is the real question. If you were there, would you have survived that night?
Hi, I'm Wahid. Welcome to our Quant Lab. In this video, we are going to take that Titanic question seriously. Not emotionally, not intuitively, but statistically. Let's be honest. Luck played a role. But survival that night wasn't random. Some people were more likely to survive than others. The question is, how would we know that? Most people think answering that question starts with data, or software, or formulas. It doesn't. Before numbers, before charts, before code, there is one decision you always make first. What exactly am I observing?
On the Titanic, we could observe many things. Age, sex, ticket class, fare paid, port of embarkation. These aren't just words. These are things someone decided mattered enough to write down. In statistics, these are called variables.
So, can we answer the question, would you have survived? Partially yes. From the data, we see clear patterns. Women survived more than men. Children survived more than adults. First-class passengers survived far more than third-class passengers. So, survival that night wasn't random. But this is Titanics, not destiny, not certainty.
Panic level, physical strength, reaction speed, and then courage, sacrifice. These things determined who lived and who died, but they were never measured. Some couldn't be, some were just ignored. And once something isn't measured, it quietly disappears from the story.
Remember this. A variable is anything you decide to observe because you believe it matters. So next time your manager hands you a new dataset at work, or you download one at university to practice, or you work through the datasets we will see in this course, remember the Titanic story. Datasets are not sacred. They are not unchangeable, and they are not always right. Most datasets measure things imperfectly. Some variables are incomplete. Some are just rough proxies of reality. And sometimes they are simply wrong. To see the real story, sometimes you need to stand on the Titanic, and at least you need to feel it, to understand the experience you are trying to explain, and to measure the variables that actually tell the story. Let me say this clearly because I think this sentence can summarize the entire of this video. Datasets only tell stories as rich as the perspective of the people who created them. If the perspective was limited, the dataset tells an incomplete story. So, before you draw charts, before you write code, before you get lost inside the data, take a step back and ask yourself, which voices are missing from this dataset? And this matters more than it sounds, because the moment you turn away and say, this dataset comes from JP Morgan, this report is from a big institution, so it must be correct. You should be very careful. We have been there before. In 2008, a lot of people trusted reports, models, numbers, simply because they came from powerful companies, and we will all know how that ended. This way of thinking actually has a name today: critical thinking. Not negativity, not cynicism, just the habit of asking, what was measured? What wasn't? And what assumptions are hiding behind these numbers? If you develop this mindset, not just in data, but in your entire life, it might be the single most important reason you won't be replaced by AI in our era, because tools can compute, but judgment is still human. Now, let's move away from the Atlantic and look at something modern. Let's pull up a different dataset, the online news popularity dataset. Look at these columns. These are our variables. And to be more exact, there are 59 variables in this dataset. Too much? A little? Perfect? Not sure. Our goal here is to measure article popularity or even quality. But look closely. Do you see a variable named truth? Do you see credibility? Do you see impact? No, because those things are impossible to measure directly. So, what do? We use what we can measure as proxies. Let's break them down one by one so you see the judgment call. This is a direct measurement. By itself, it means nothing more than this. How many words are in the title? It only becomes a proxy the moment we decide it represents something else, like clarity, simplicity, or clickworthiness. This is a proxy. We use it as a signal for popularity. Does 10,000 shares mean the article is good? Not necessarily. It just means it was clicked. The interpretation is a judgment. Again, directly counted, but often treated as a proxy for authority or credibility. More links might suggest better research, or it might just mean more SEO tricks. The variable is real. What it stands for is a choice. Remember this: a variable is not a proxy because of how it is measured, but because of what we ask it to stand for. This is why I told you statistics starts with judgment. We wanted to measure article quality, but the variable is missing. It's not there because it can't be measured, so we settle for proxies. Just like on the Titanic, where ticket class was our proxy for access to lifeboats. Here, shares is our proxy for value. The variable is real. What it stands for is your choice. But to turn that choice into something we can actually measure and analyze, we need a language, a way to talk to the data. This is where people get lost. They think the software or the language, like R, defines the analysis. It's the opposite. R doesn't think for you. Software is a tool, not a brain. The real distinction, the one that separates the top 1% from everyone else, is this. Amateurs think variables come from data. Professionals know that data comes from variables. The data is just what you have managed to capture of the variable you decided was worth seeing. So, would you have survived the Titanic? Statistics can't promise you an answer, but it can show you why some stories are visible and others disappear. To help you reflect, I've prepared 3 exercises. The PDF is in the description. Here is how it works. Right now, we have 3 routes. Route 1 is for psychology, and Route 2 is specifically for finance. Route 3 is general. Anyone from any background can start there. It's a default path if your field isn't psychology or finance. But if you want to work in your own field, just leave a comment here in the comment section of this post. I'm building this course based on your feedback, and I will try to add datasets from your domain over time. Choose your route, work through the exercise, and send me your project. You can send it via Telegram channel, comments under the related post, or email it with the title of the session, whatever works for you. Next time, we will talk about types of data, not as definitions to memorize, but as consequences of the choices you make. No shortcuts. That's where real statistical thinking begins.